Welcome to a quick tutorial where I'm going to show you how to create a nice laser cuttable file kind of crossing from OnShape over to Adobe Illustrator so we can send it to the laser cutter. So for this example we're going to use the phone stand from the other tutorial where we've got these three different pieces that we've designed. So we're calling this kind of the front stop, the back stop, and the base. So when we want to laser cut something, we can't actually send it directly from OnShape into our laser cutter. We have to go through Adobe Illustrator first. So we're going to create three what are called DXF files, which are just a type of vector format that the laser cutter and Adobe Illustrator both understand and that OnShape can export. So we're going to go to our part studio, not our assembly, and let's hide all of our parts and just turn on just the base. If our parts weren't overlapping, we could do this without hiding things, but no big deal, we'll show just the base. If we click once on this top surface, right, this yellow area is what we want to give to the laser cutter. It only is going to understand 2D images. Now we modeled this thing in 3 dimensions so that we could visualize how it would fit together as it's going to exist in the real world, but as far as the laser cutter is concerned, we just need 2D images or 2D sketches to give it to it. So if we click once on this top surface and then right click, we can choose export as DXF. So that's going to allow us to export this. We can give it a name. It's going to default to the name of the part studio and then the name of the part. That's totally fine. And so we're just going to say export. So that file is ready. We'll do the same thing for the backstop. So just clicking on the most interesting face, exporting as DXF, and then we'll hide that part and do the same for this little front stop. So now that I've exported all 3 pieces, I'm going to open Adobe Illustrator and make a new file. I want to make sure that I set my measurement units to be the same thing I'm using in OnShape. So in this case that's centimeters, and I'm going to make my file an arbitrary size, maybe 20 by 20 centimeters for now. I want to make sure I have CMYK color selected and that we are using artboards. So we'll say create, and it should just give me a blank 20 by 20 centimeter canvas onto which I can drop my files. So there's 2 ways to get my DXF files into Adobe Illustrator. I can go to File, Place, or I can hit Command-Shift-P. That's going to allow me to go and grab from downloads those 3 DXF files. So I can actually highlight all 3 of them and hit Place. And I don't want to click and drag because that would change the scale away from the dimensions that I've defined. So I'm just going to click once for each part, and I'm going to click once into kind of separate areas so they don't overlap at the beginning. So these are the 3 basic shapes I've got that are technically ready for laser cutting as is, but you'll notice if I grab one of them right now, they're clear, no big deal there. These are technically ready to laser cut as is, but if I wanted to do any kind of engraving, I'd have to follow this next step. So if you're only laser cutting your parts, all you really have to do is lay them out. You can actually lay them out pretty close to one another, and the laser cutter is precise enough not to have any issue with having this thin line of material in between. So this file is, if I were to go to Object, Artboards, and Fit to Artwork Bounds, this file is ready to laser cut as is, which is great. But if we wanted to do any engraving onto these parts, we have to follow the next set of steps. So if you want to separate your parts for one set of lines for laser cutting and another for engraving with laser, what we're going to do is highlight everything using Command A, and then we're going to use this awesome little shape builder tool. So this tool allows you to, instead of having these are just collections of lines, if you click and drag inside of a shape, it will create a new closed form with that shape, which you can then apply fill and line coloring to. So for all of the things we want cut, we want them to have a white fill and a red stroke. So that's just kind of a standard we adopted, where if we want a cut line, we usually turn it red for the laser cutter, and then when we want to engrave, we use black. So let's say that I wanted to put a little bit of text on here. We can just put my name. We'll say Mr. Grice, and I might want to center up that text, and maybe I hold shift and scale it up a little bit. So if I wanted to make this phone stand, we're almost ready. The only thing left to do is, if I were to put this in a laser cutter right now, it's gonna cut these internal holes twice, which can lead to some burning of our material. That's due to just the way the shape builder kind of works under the hood. So if I click on one of my shape builder resultant shapes, I can hit ungroup 2 times. I'm not really sure why it's 2 times, but if I drag this aside, often you'll find that there's a negative of the hole left behind that you want to delete. For whatever reason, it hasn't done it here, which is awesome. And that means that this is truly ready for laser cutting. So all I've got to do is save this file. If I'm going to sign in on the laser cutting machine to my Adobe account, I can just save it to my Creative Cloud with a descriptive name, and this is ready for laser cutting.